Okay, good evening everyone and welcome back. So I just wanted to start off tonight by saying a big thank you to all you guys out there. So this month is actually the first time this channel's actually been monetized, which, look, the intention was never to get the channel monetized. The whole intention was to help you guys out there get through some of these high-risk licenses, because there are a few hurdles in trying to get there. Right, some can be a lot of information to get through, but look, I never planned on getting it monetized, but thanks to sort of you guys out there, everyone keep tuning in and keep listening, things have gone a little bit more than I ever expected. All right, so just a big thank you to you guys. All right, so all right, so what I want to do is I want to have a chat tonight about, look, I get a lot of questions on what RTO should I go to, or how do I find a RTO? All right, now, look, there's good ones out there and there's bad ones out there, just like everything else. And I'm not going to name any names of any in particular RTOs or anything else like that. I'll just give you a little bit of a heads up on what sort of things you actually want to do, look for when you're out there. All right. Now, one thing you want to look at is, look, the first thing you do, go try the obvious route. Jump on Google, look up the RTOs, look who's delivering whatever course it is that you want to do, okay? And then look at their reviews and see what their reviews are actually like as well. All right. Now, I don't know about you guys, but me personally, if I'm actually looking at a RTO, if I'm checking the reviews, I don't worry about the 5-star ones. I'll go straight to the 1-star ones. And look, you're always going to get 1-star ones. Just because a RTO's got a few 1-stars, it doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad RTO, because look, trust me, when you do get a habit of when people fail the assessment, they like to blame everyone else except for themselves. But by going to the 1-star ones and the 2-star ones, what you may notice is if you keep getting the same, trainer is getting all the bad reviews. All right, it's one trainer in particular. All right, that might give you a bit of a heads up as well. All right, you might find a bit of consistency through it as well. But don't take it that just because someone's got a single star or 2 stars, that it's a bad RTO. All I'm saying is a lot of people don't like taking responsibility. They're not free. Look, these courses aren't there as a freebie. You've got to actually put the work in, and not everyone does get through. They think it's going to be a freebie. They don't study, and when they don't get through, they like to blame the RTO. But in saying that, I will still look at those and see if there's any consistency through any of the ones. Okay, all right. So that's one thing that I would do. All right. Now, keep getting all these notifications popping up. None of them relevant to what we're doing at the moment. All right, just get rid of these. All right. So that's the first thing I would do. I would check those reviews out. Obviously, if they're consistently good RTO, they're going to have a high ranking, and they are going to have some low ones, but I would check out both sides of it. Now, if they got 5 stars, all right, and they don't seem to have any 1 or 2 stars, look, I think that's a bit of a giveaway as well. All right, because you don't want someone who's not going to do it right. If they're just giving these licenses away, well, they should lose their license as an RTO, all right, because it is a high-risk industry, and they should be teaching you how to do it right. All right, so that's one aspect of it I'd look at. I'd look at all those different review ratings. All right, now personally, I would also be very wary if you come across a RTO that likes to combine 2 or 3 courses into one. All right, there's a lot of information to cover in all of these courses, and if they're trying to combine all of these into one, there's something not quite right there. So I would definitely not be looking at that sort of thing as well. Do things right. Do each course as an individual. and spend the time and learn each course as you go through. All right. If you try and put them all together, yes, there are some common questions amongst them. The first 10, 15, 20 questions are all going to be very, very similar across the board. All right, but that doesn't mean you should be joining all these courses together. All right, especially when it comes to the prac, because there is a lot of different practical components to all the different courses. All right, so just keep that in mind as well. So I'd also be looking at that sort of thing as well. All right, so there's a couple of the things I'd be looking for as I'm going, trying to look for an RTO. Now, I'm not going to promote any RTO in particular, but what I would really like is if any of you guys out there, you've got any good recommendations or any that you really want to keep away from, let us know, because what I want to try and do is I want to develop a list of competent RTOs that do the right thing and do everything above board, and I want to try and get a list of RTOs in each state, because I keep getting a lot of different people asking me, where do I go to an RTO? Now, because I haven't been in every state, I do know a couple of good ones in a couple of the states, but I want to be able to get a broad picture, and I want to be able to get a list on my website, so that when people keep coming and ask me, oh, where can I do this and where can I do that, it'll be a good starting point as well. Okay, got our first question up here. So, thanks Kieran, got through my doggers from watching some of your vids. Now on to riggers. Good on you, Shane. I'm glad it helped. That's the whole point of doing these, is to sort of help you guys get through. All right, because I don't particularly get any benefit out of it, except over the years I have seen a lot of these dodgy RTOs not doing the right thing. And look, I find it going to help you guys a lot if you've got some sort of reference, because when you do jump on, especially when you go to the cranes and rigging some of the YouTube sites, a lot of them are full of incorrect information, or information that may be right for out in the workforce, but it's not really going to help you get through that assessment. All right, so this channel is all about trying to help you guys to get through these assessments as well. Okay, Srivanis, job available. Sorry, Srivanis, I hope I'm saying that right. But look, I'm just a bloke out here trying to help people out. I'm just doing my own thing, trying to help you guys. So I don't actually employ anyone. Nobody works for me. All right, I'm just here to try and help some students. Okay, so sorry, can't help you there. All right. My advice, if you are trying to get into this industry though, is the best way to do it, I find, is to print out a resume and go door knocking. Go knocking at all the different crane companies, see them face to face, all right? Because if you're going to wait for them to advertise for a job, you might be waiting for a very long time, all right? Job vacancies don't come up that often, and if you're waiting for it, even if they do advertise for one, you're competing against 1,000 other resumes that they're going to get for it. If you show that you're keen and you're eager and you're knocking on their door, handing them resumes, do a follow-up in a week or two, all right? Keep persistent, and look, it will happen and you will get there, all right? But as for me personally, I don't hire anyone. I'm not an RTO. I'm just a trainer. I train all mobile crane classes. I do also have a tower crane license, and I also train from dogging through to intermediate rigging, do boom lift, do forklift. So I'm a WorkSafe accredited assessor for all of those classes. All right. So, okay, where was I? Jobs available? No, don't hire them. Okay. Look, so if you are out there and you're going to be doing some courses and you do want to know anything about it, just jump online, ask a few questions. That's what we're here for, here to help you guys get through it all. All right. And look, I've been getting a lot of good feedback, and it's good to see a lot of you guys are really appreciating this, because, look, sometimes I don't feel like jumping on camera and doing this, but you guys are always so thankful that, look, it takes a bit out of my time. If it helps you guys, well, all the better. Okay. All right. So we were talking about RTOs. All right. Hang on. Excuse me. All right. Okay, so do we have anyone out there at the moment who is currently enrolled in a course? All right, or does anyone have any recommendations of where they could go? All right, anywhere where you shouldn't go? All right, because like I said, and I do get this question 15, 20 times a week is, look, and a lot of people are actually asking me if I'm running this course, or if I'm doing this or I'm doing that. To be fully open, for the last month or so, I haven't been training. I've actually taken a job on the side as a safety consultant on the site. And look, I may go back to training in July, I may not. It all depends on sort of what goes. But either way, whichever way it goes, I'm still going to be coming on and I'm still going to be having a chat to you guys and about on the training side of things. And I may even work a little bit more onto the safety side or just in construction in general. Just trying to talk about my background and sort of what sort of things we do actually come across out there. Okay, all right. Who else have we got? Okay, let me see, where are we? Okay, all right. Pretty quiet night tonight, is it? Okay, all right. So, yes. So as I was saying, if I can get some heads up from a lot of you guys out there on some of the RTOs that are out there, and I will get in touch with them. And I'm not going to take it just off what people do tell me here, because I don't know. You might work for the RTO themselves. I don't know. But I want to get some recommendations from each different area, and then I also want to get in touch with those RTOs personally, and I want to make sure they're doing the right thing. All right, I'm not going to ever recommend anyone that's going to be doing anything dodgy. I'm not going to recommend anyone that's not going to help the students as well. They're there just to try and grab your money. I'm not going to recommend them. I will only recommend ones that actually do the training correctly. All right, so I'd love to get some input off some of you guys. So even if you want to send me a message, if you don't want to put it up here, all right, if you send me a message and I can sort of start developing that list. And then once I've developed that list, I want to get in touch with these RTOs, have a chat to them and actually see if they're doing everything the right way around as well. All right, Shane, currently enrolled in Cert 3 rigging at Multi-Skills. Seems to be working out. All right, so that's great to hear. Shane, if you just done your dogging, you would have had Pete, and I'm sure Pete would have looked after you there as well. All right, not bad for an old fellow, Pete. All right, and I think you still got you'll have your boom and forklift and all that sort of stuff to do there as well. I think, if I remember rightly, Pete's actually doing rigging next week. So if you're enrolled in the basic rigging next week, I'd start watching those videos on the basic rigging maths as well. All right. Now, that is one thing I'll advise. If you are enrolling in a course, just jump onto the website, check out the videos for that particular course. All right. There is a lot of information that you need to cover off in these courses, and the more you can learn beforehand, the better off you're going to be. All right, so jump online. If you're doing any dogging, basic rigging, intermediate rigging, look at the calculations, because for some reason calculation seems to bugger a lot of people. So check that one out first. All right, then you've got all the different videos on what knots you need, whistle and hand signals, all those sorts of things on the practical aspect of things. All right. That's what he said. Oh, what? He said he was an old fella. G'day, Raj. How are you tonight, mate? All right. So, where are we? Yeah. All right. Any advantage you can give yourself before you get into these, because especially if you're just going into one for the first time, you might be a little bit overwhelmed with how much information you do actually have to cover in a short period of time. So, the more you can do in advance, the better off you're going to be, okay? So don't be afraid of jumping on. And look, if you're watching some of my videos and you're not sure how or what some of it's saying, drop us a message. Because if some of these videos aren't coming through clear enough, I'm quite happy to redo them and try and explain them a little bit better. All right. I have been told at times because I actually enjoy calculations, and I have been told that occasionally on calculations I can move through them a bit quick. So if you find that, then drop us a line, and I'm quite happy to redo them as well. But in saying that, the advantage of doing the videos is you can always stop, pause, rewind, go back, and understand each step as you go as well. Right? So if you watch it all the way through and you don't quite get it, like I'll use the basic rigging as an example. Just watch the first formula. All right. Watch that a few times until that sinks in. All right. Once you've got that, move on to the next one. All right. And by doing it that way, that's all going to help as well. All right. Love video. You can always stop, rewind, pause, do whatever you need to do. All right. But anything you do before you go into that class is really going to help you a lot as well. Okay. All right. All right. So I seem to get a few from multi-skills. It's probably because that's where I was working. All right. Anyone else out there have any recommendations of somewhere to go? All right. Any other states out there? All right. No. No one from New South Wales, Queensland, WA, Tasmania. Can't forget Tasmania, ACT, South Australia, Northern Territory. All right. Like I said, I'm trying to develop a list that I can put on my webpage. And it's not that I'm sick of answering questions, but I do get asked a lot of times every single week, where can I go to do this? Where can I go to do that? All right. So if I develop that list, I'll actually put it on my webpage, and I will just direct everyone there as a reference guide. All right. Like I said, I want to do a bit of due diligence. I want to check them out. I want to have a chat to them, make sure they're actually doing the right thing. All right, and that way we can go there. Okay, so Raj from Queensland, Ascent Training Solutions. Actually, you haven't heard of them. So where are they based, Raj? Are they in Brisbane, on the Gold Coast, up north, or? Yeah, so now, like I said, wouldn't mention any in particular, but I do know a couple in Queensland. I personally did my tower crane ticket at Coolat Safety on the Gold Coast. That was a lot of years ago. I believe that there's a change of owner since then, so I have no idea what they're like at the moment. But they were actually quite good when I went there and did my tower crane. And up in Mackay, you've got Craig Finucane, can't remember, think of ProLift. Yeah, ProLift training in Mackay. I got my intermediate rigging there, and Craig's been around the industry for ages. He used to work at CIA Cranes when I was there. So he was pretty good at what he does too. So I know, as I said, ProLift in Mackay did a good job, and so did Coolat. But look, as I said, both of them were a long time ago as well. Things do change over time. So if you have any thoughts on them, let us know in the comments. Okay, Brisbane in Richlands. Okay, well, let's just say Brisbane, because I really have no idea about the suburbs or where Richlands might be. But so there's one recommendation. All right. Now, as I said, once I get that list together, I'll do a bit of due diligence, and I'm not just going to listen to what you guys say, because look, don't get me wrong, but a lot of people say they're a good one to go for just because they passed me. All right, that doesn't necessarily mean they're a good RTA. It could mean you're a good student. All right, but I'm going to do any due diligence before I put any names up on a list for anyone to see. If I'm going to recommend them, I'm going to make sure they actually do the right thing as well. All right. Now, I will say, if you do go and do a course and you find it too easy, that probably hasn't been done right, because there is a lot of information. Look, it does help if you have some sort of experience in the industry before you go into these courses, because what you will find is what does get a lot of people when they first come in is the different terminology that can be used. All right, so it's almost like a language of its own sometimes, the terminology used in the rigging industry. So I do also have a video on terminology. Now it doesn't cover all of it. There's probably a lot there. I should have another look at it, see what I did do, and see what else needs to be added to it as well. Because look, a lot of times, a lot of the language we use is like second nature to me, and I don't realise that it's new to some of you guys. So if you just come across any terminology in any of these courses, you're not sure what it means, drop us a line. Even if you understand it now, let us know if it's something that was brought up that you didn't know at the time, because I want to start compiling a bit more on the terminology, because that is one thing that does get a lot of people. All right, and it doesn't help that, look, if I'm training something, instead of saying wedge and socket, I might say ham bone, because that's more of an industry terminology, although the assessment keeps saying wedge and socket. So in terms like that, there are like different meanings to different wordings for the same thing. And depending on the trainer you get, if he's got a lot more industry experience, he might lean more towards what's said in industry. So if I can also get a list from you guys of what sort of terminology that you picked up on or that you just learnt in the course that you hadn't heard of before. Especially if you've watched the video on rigging terminology and you didn't see a mention in there, all right, because I may not have even thought about it. Because a lot of these videos, look, I don't try and script them or anything else, as you can probably tell. I just wing it. All right, and I'm hoping you guys will ask a few more questions, and then I can stop trying to wing it. All right, okay. All right, so is anyone currently online, currently enrolled in another course? Or what's the next course on the list? Okay. Let me see. Yes, no. Where am I? Okay. Reeving factors. Yeah, well, that's a good point. So, reeving factors. Look, reeving is actually more of a, let's say, a WorkSafe term. It's not something you would typically say. As a rigger, if something's reeved, it means it's choked. So I would more likely say the choking factor rather than the reeving factor, because a lot more people tend to understand it more if I say you choke a sling rather than you reeve it. All right, but that is something that is quite common. Now, the other thing I want to do is look, and I know I'm going to do some of these videos, and it does take a little bit of time because, look, I do work a lot, but I do want to do another video on the three main top ways of slinging load. That's either a direct lift, having it choked, and doing a basket as well, and talk about the advantages and disadvantages of each of them. All right. So Raj has got his C6 in 2 weeks. Awesome. So C6, that is a lot of information to get through. All right. So essentially you're going to end up with 120 questions to do. All right. Now, a lot of them, well, I won't say a lot of them. Let's say the first 20 or so are going to be pretty much the same as you did in your dogging and your rigging courses. All right. Well, if you've done them in the last couple of years, they have changed a bit from prior to that. There is going to be a fair bit of dogging aspect to that as well, because when you're driving the crane, you're responsible for what happens under the hook as well. So you need to learn about your sling inspections. All right. You're going to have to do know how to sling loads, how to calculate the capacity of the slings. Right, so you do have that dogging aspect in the C6 as well. So if you are watching some of these videos, watch the ones on the crane operations, but go back and watch some of the dogging ones as well, because there is a fair bit of dogging involved, and they've introduced that dogging aspect now that they've taken the prerequisite for dogging off the course, which I totally disagree with. They should never have done that. Dogging should be a prerequisite for it. Now that it's not, they've thrown those dogging questions into the C6 as well, so that you will get questions on dogging and you will get some calculations on dogging. All right, so when you're studying for it, don't forget everything you've learned when you did your dogging. Well, hopefully you've done your dogging first. I will always recommend do your dogging. All right, now I just want to point that out too. Now, even though there is no prerequisite for a crane license now, I am always going to recommend 100% do your dogging license as a minimum first. All right, it will make your crane license a lot easier, but it's also the right way to do things. All right, now the best way to do it is to spend some time under the hook before you ever jump into a crane. Okay. So Shane's got basic rigging any week now. So, yep, Shane. So once again, those first questions are always going to remain the same as what you did in your dogging. So go back on them. Don't forget all the things you did, like your whistle signals, your hand signals, because you're still going to be directing the crane. You're still going to need that stuff. There is a lot more practical, and in the practical, you're actually working in a group to get through the practical. Now, keep this in mind. Now, it's not just for basic rigging, it's also if you're doing intermediate rigging, it's also if you're doing a scaffolding license. When you're working in a group to do the practical, you're still being assessed as an individual. So if you're going to be that one bloke that stands back and expects everyone else to do the work, well, you're going to get pulled aside and have a chat to, all right? You've got to be able to show that you get in there and you do your fair share of the work, all right? You are working together as a team, but you are being assessed as an individual. And look, what I do find, especially look when you get a student who's nervous, he may be a little bit introverted, he's got a couple of these big tough guys around him and he's a bit nervous about getting in there and he sort of stands back. Don't be. Everyone's all there for the same reason. Get in there, help each other. The best way to get through these team assessments is as a team. So if you talk together, work together, all right, that is the best way to get through these. If you try and push everyone out the way and say, I'm going to do it myself, well, you're going to get spoken to as well, because a big part of working in this industry is working in a team, and you need to learn how to do that. So it's working in a team and communicating with each other. That's the big thing that's going to get through these basic rigging, intermediate rigging, scaffolding. Any of these assessments that require teamwork. Okay. Thanks for the info. Do you have a video up for C6 calcs or any tips? Yes, I do have a video up on C6 calculations. Okay, now I've also got up videos for crane pre-starts. Now, the crane I did it on was a zoom line. Now, that may or may not be the crane that you're doing it on, but the process is going to be the same. So even though if it's not the exact same crane, you're still looking for the same stuff, all right? So you've got the C6 calculations, you've got the crane pre-starts, you've got the crane setup as well. Now the setup's a little bit different depending on the crane. If it's a truck mount, whether it be a zoom line, let's say XMG, another Chinese crane, not a big fan of either, to be honest with you. If it's a Kato or an old Tadano, it's going to be very, very similar to the video I've got up there on the zoom line. If, however, you're in a Liebherr or a Terex or a Grove or whatever the case may be, it's going to be slightly different, particularly on the setup. But the principles are still the same, right? It's still going to be the same thing of getting it set up as per manufacturer specs. All right. Once it's all set up, you boom it up to 70 degrees, bring your hooks down, throw the boom out. The principles are the same. It's just how you go about doing it is going to vary slightly between cranes. A lot of the training companies do actually have zoom lines because they are a cheap crane and they don't make a lot of money from crane courses, not as much as you would working the crane out in the real world, and they're expensive pieces of gear. So if you are driving a zoom line, and even if you're not, watch those videos anyway. It's going to give you a good heads up on what to look for. So you've got your C6 calculations, you've got your pre-starts, and you've got your crane setup. All right, and there's also a 3 very short videos on catching load swing as well, which is always a good one to watch. All right, I've seen blokes I've seen blokes driving cranes for 20 years that still can't catch a swing. All right, so there are plenty of videos up there, and if you go to the playlists, I'm pretty sure I've got most of them broken down into playlists. So you've got a playlist for dogging, you've got a playlist for rigging, and you've got a playlist for cranes. All right. Okay. I'm currently an intermediate rigger. I agree with you too. Should be a rigger before jumping in the seat. Yep, good on you, Raj. Yeah, I totally agree. Look, I am never, ever, ever going to tell someone they should always just get in a crane. I will always advise spend the time under the hook before you jump in a crane. Now, I'll tell you this: if you're in this industry because you've heard it's good money, it's not the reason to get into it. It's the kind of industry you got to love this job to do it, and I don't see why you wouldn't. I honestly believe it is the best job in construction. Now, I actually miss doing a bit of rigging as well. I actually like getting out there and doing that side of things. I'm just getting old, all right, and sore back and all the rest of it from doing all the silly things when I was younger. All right, but don't rush into the cranes. All right, take it as an apprenticeship, or probably a little bit longer than an apprenticeship. I think the apprenticeship should get you through your rigging tickets, all right, from dogging through to intermediate. Right, I'm not going to say you need to get advanced because, look, it's really not needed in construction. If you want to go offshore or if you're working in the entertainment industry, by all means, go and get advanced. But if you're working in general construction, there's no need for it. So don't waste your money on that. But spend those few years under the hook. There's not really that much pay difference between a rigger and a crane operator. All right, so if you want to jump into cranes for the money, don't. Get that experience under the hook first, and you will become a much better operator by understanding that side of things. All right, you can always tell if you're rigging a load and you're holding the ring and the crane driver stops the hook up here, you know he's never spent the time under the hook because he realises it makes life hard for yourself. All right. Okay, C6 is with a Sani 55 crawler. Awesome. Okay, look, my personal preference is crawlers. I love crawlers. All right, they're great machines. Can't say I've ever driven a Sani. Okay, I've driven Cabelcos, Levers, D-Mags. Manitwoks, can't leave out the Manny. Actually, the Manny was a good crane. But can't say I've driven a Sani. But I do love crawlers. I love the way they slew. I much prefer to back slew rather than on the oil cans where you just let it do its own thing. All right. The problem is now personally, if I was doing a C6, I would rather do an oil can because that's what you're a lot more likely to be driving, a hydraulic crane. As you get into the bigger cranes, that's when you're more likely to use a crawler, and they do operate completely different. All right, so if they do have a different hydraulic crane on site, ask if you get the opportunity to have a feel for that as well, because operation of a crawler and the operation of a oil can are going to be completely different. All right, and as a C6, you're a lot more likely to be driving an oil can. All right, so they do, especially things like the slew, are going to be completely different. Okay. Would there not be an argument that we in the entertainment don't really need an advanced riggers? Now, one thing about the entertainment industry is, look, I'm never going to say I'm an expert in it. I've operated cranes, setting up stages. Look, I've never actually done a lot of entertainment rigging. Now, it's like any form of rigging. There is that many different aspects to it. Whether or not you need it depends on what type of rigging you do. Okay. Now, look, a lot of what you do will just come down to intermediate, because a lot of times you are using 2 winches to lift trusses and that type of thing. But when you start putting up the flying foxes and all that kind of stuff, that's where it's going to come into it. It all depends how involved you are in that industry and how much of it you actually do. All right. So you've just really got to look at what part of the industry you're in, what you do in that industry, and whether or not you need that license for it. All right. Without knowing too much about it, that's pretty much all I can tell you at the moment. Okay. Right. I tell you what, it is pretty popular, this entertainment industry, though. Every live broadcast I've been getting quite a few questions about it. I might have to see if I can dig someone up who knows a lot more about it than me, and have a chat about it. Also, I do know during COVID we actually had a hell of a lot of people from the entertainment industry come in to do different courses and upskill. They took advantage of the opportunity. They were one of the ones that were really hard hit by COVID. A lot of things shut down, so they used the opportunity and they came and they did a lot of upskilling as well. All right, but yeah, once again, I'm no expert in the entertainment industry. As I said, I've done the occasional stage show, even the odd worked with the Carnies a couple of times, in the crane obviously, but yeah, definitely no expert in that field of things. Okay, so who else do we have online? Yep. All right. Okay, so does anyone have any requests for any videos to come up in the future? All right, so one of the big things is trying to find ideas of what to come up with to help you guys out. Look, because a lot of times I think, oh no, that's too easy. People should already know that. Only to find out that it's only because I'm that used to doing. So if there is any ideas you guys have what you'd like to see as well, pop that down and we can certainly look at doing that as well. Okay. No worries, Shane. I might actually do that tomorrow, and we'll have a little bit of a chat and see what we can do. Whereabouts are you from, Shane, if you don't mind saying that? All right. Yeah, so any videos that you guys would like to see, or you think there's anything that's missing out of what I've already got up, or something I should change about some of the ones I've got up, all right, just let me know, and because I'm always looking for fresh ideas as well. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Just down in Geelong. All right. Might even be able to catch up for a coffee sometime down there, Shane, and have a chat. All right. I'll give you a DM in the morning and we'll see what we can arrange. All right. All right. Do we have any others on board that are in the entertainment industry? All right. And what are your experiences, and whether or not you think you need the advanced, or where are you all at? Awesome. All right. Yes, no. Okay. All right. So now, look, I want to talk about some other courses. Like, we talk a lot about the dogging and the rigging and the cranes. Look, now, when you want to get into this industry, there's probably some other courses you should really have a look at doing as well. All right. Now, like I said, I'm not currently working for anyone, so I'm not promoting any course or anyone in particular. I'm just giving you advice on what will help you if you're wanting to try and get into industry. Right now, look, every single rigger should really have, as a minimum, a boom lift license as well, and a working at heights. All right, so you should any rigger would have a boom lift and a working heights. Forklifts is a pretty handy one to have as well. All right, and if you're looking at working somewhere like in refineries or you're hoping to get into the mines, in that case, the confined space is also another very handy one to have. Now, this next one can depend on where you're working, because it's not, look, and I think I covered this in a previous live one, but another one that is very handy in Victoria especially is a yellow card for a scissor lift. All right. Agree or disagree, the EWPA yellow card is something they do ask for a lot down here, although it is not a requirement to have it to operate one. All right, but look, if you're trying to get in on, especially a lot of major projects in Victoria, that's probably a good one to have as well. All right, so look, you should always have your boom lift, because look, a lot of you are doing a lot of work out of a boom when you're a rigger. Well, you should have your working at heights, and a lot of companies will say if you're in a boom, you must have your working at heights as well anyway. All right, so working at heights, boom lift, forklift is always handy. It's just one of those licenses that always comes in handy wherever you are. Doesn't matter what industry you're in, forklift always seems to come in handy at some point or another. All right, especially if you're just starting out, it's going to be really helpful, especially if you have a HR license, and even better if you have a HC license. All right, because they do quite often need people to be able to drive the trucks with the counterweights on as well. Okay. All right. Now, does anyone else out there think of any more courses that you should really have before you do it? Do a rigging course, or well, to become a rigger, I should say, or a crane operator. Yes, no. All right. Yeah, there's lots of courses out there, and a lot of people try and sell you on courses that are totally irrelevant as well. Right, so just do a bit of background checking and see if you actually need those courses. There are some courses that do come in handy, and there are some that are just a waste of time. For example, I remember, I don't know if they're still doing it, but a number of years ago in Perth, there were some companies selling haul truck tickets for $10,000 or more. Now, the thing about doing those courses is you don't need a ticket to drive a haul truck, you just need a HR license. It's always good to have some sort of competency, but the mine sites don't care if you've done a $10,000 course. You'll find a lot of times they would rather train you themselves. So all these people, with all the big effort of trying to get into the mines, they were throwing all their money away trying to do these courses, which meant absolutely nothing. All right, so do that little bit of due diligence before you do go spending money. Find out whether or not that license is actually required. All right, like I said, it depends where you are. The yellow card, a lot of companies, especially I know here in Victoria, not so much in Queensland or WA, because I'd never actually ever heard of one, to be honest with you, before I came here. If you're working down here in Victoria, yellow card is going to be good to have. If you're in WA or Queensland, not so much. There is no requirement to drive a scissor lift, you just need to be competent. Okay. I think SCAF is a skill set that could be good. Okay. All right, riggers and scaffies, they always seem to get along pretty well. Look, I do have a basic SCAF ticket. Never worked as a scaffolder, but I do have a basic scaffold ticket. I will never pronounce to be a scaffolder. But look, it does come in handy every now and again. I think the last time I actually used it was as a favour for my daughter's school when they had to put on a stage show. They wanted a little scaff built, so I sort of helped them out with that. But it does come in handy, and it's good to have an understanding, especially if you get to that position where you need to lift a motor out and you need to remove a handrail or do something like that. But I would always advise go and talk to scaffies as well. Shane being in entertainment, obviously scaffolding is a good one to have. If you want to work offshore, they typically always want dual ticketed advanced rigger and scaffolder. So it depends on the route you want to take. Entertainment, most definitely. Scaffold's great to have. Offshore, once again, scaffolding is great to have. Construction, you'll find even if you do have a SCAF license, if you're working as a rigger on a site, unless you've been VOC to scaffold as well, even though you have the license, they're not going to allow you to touch anything anyway. All right, and so you'd always go back to the SCAF companies and have them make any minor modifications as needed. Okay. All right. All right, so Shane, quick question on the entertainment. So what form of entertainment industry are you in? Are you working for TV and film? Are you working for theatre? What sort of stuff are you up to there, mate? Okay. All right, because even when I say entertainment industry, there is a big, broad amount of that as well. It's not just one narrow little field. There is a hell of a lot in there as well. I mean, you could be setting up the Grand Prix, you could be setting up for an AC/DC concert, you could be working on stage for cats, you could be in the tennis arena. There is a broad area to that as well. So I keep saying the entertainment industry, but that is a pretty broad sort of branch off to talk about as well. All right. And that's one thing about rigging. A lot of people see rigging as doing steel work. There's so many different things that we cover. You can't really count them all. Okay, so Shane does live events, festivals, mobile stages, etc. Yeah, all right. Yeah, so as I said, I think the last live event I helped set up was the Andre Rio concert at Subi Oval. And that was a little bit interesting with some of the riggers that he brought with him. Let's just say that. I did actually threaten to pack the crane up and take it away because they kept telling me the way they did things in Europe, and we're not in Europe. Right, so that was interesting. All right. Rope rescue course is a good thing to do. Once again, it comes down to where you're going to be working. There is a huge demand in mine sites, etc., for rope rescue stuff as well. You will find, and probably not just the mines, but a lot of other places as well. You'll probably find that with a bit of research, there's so many industries that actually require rope rescue. We do get quite a few coming through doing courses as well. It's never going to be a bad thing to have. All right. I think I did a rope rescue course. It would have been back about late 90s, working as a emergency services officer on a mine site. All right. It was actually a ball doing it. It was a great course to do. I wouldn't remember any of it now, to be honest with you. But it's always going to be a good thing to learn, especially in rigging, because we do so much work at heights. Any sort of specialty you have like that, that's only going to be a good thing. All right. So if you can do anything that sort of specialises, makes you stand out from everyone else, that's always going to be a benefit to you in the long run. All right. Now, another one that could be good to do, it depends, where you want to go in life. And it's one I'm actually thinking of doing myself, is there's a couple of courses on building or making lift plans and that sort of thing. That can be a very technical and high value to have as well. I'm thinking of doing it from my background as a crane operator and being around and just as in general crane hire, we do actually quite often do our own lift studies, but on a smaller aspect. Wouldn't be quite interesting, I think, to look down that whole field of, especially on more of the major projects, of going down that alley of developing the lift studies as well. All right, so there's plenty out there to learn, and you should always be learning. As long as you're always learning something, things can only get better. Okay. Yeah, so my advice, if you don't throw your money away on courses that are no value for money. Just because an RTO says this is going to help you get a job doesn't mean it's going to. Do that little bit of research before you do. Find out if that course is actually needed. But you will find there are also plenty of courses out there you may not think of that might specialise you in a field as well. So always be open to learn new stuff, but make sure if you're going to be paying money and putting your time and effort in, make sure it's something worthwhile doing. All right, don't do it just for the sake of having another ticket. To be honest, there's nothing that annoys me more than ticket collectors. They go through and they've got 500 letters on their licenses, but they know nothing about any of them. All right? Always work your way through it. Treat it as a long term. All right? Get your dogging. Well, dogging and basically go hand in hand. I don't have any problem getting them close together. I would always advise spend some time under the hook before you go and get that intermediate. All right, and then spend a little bit of time with that, and then look at getting into a crane. When you get into a crane, I'm always going to, and I keep getting asked this question all the time, I am always going to advise do your CN first. All right, CN is a completely different machine to the slewers, and you should learn how to do that one. All right, once you're comfortable in that, because remember, it's usually the first crane most people get into, and it's also the most dangerous crane. So do the right thing by yourself, get your CN first, and then jump into the C6 and learn that one. All right? Work your way up through the classes. Remember, there's plenty of time. There's not that much, you won't see much of a pay difference between a CN operator and a C6 operator. What you will find is the CN will learn things a lot better if they do that first and then jump into C6. Now, if you do just get your C6 first and skip that CN step, if you're given the opportunity to jump into that Frenner or the TID or the Hummer or whatever the case may be, make sure you get shown through that machine and spend some time with an experienced operator learning that machine as well. Because you'll see a lot more of Frenners go over than you will a slewer. All right, and that's due to a lack of experience, a lack of time in it, and a big problem is a lot of people are jumping that ticket and then just being expected to know how to drive a Frenner without actually spending the time and showing it. All right, so I think on that note, all right, I think we're going to call it a night. Look, it's been a great night. It's good to see a couple of you that are really sort of interested in it. All right, like I said, I'm going to keep this as a regular thing. So next Sunday night, going to be on here again. So if you do think of anything between now and then, write it down. You can jump on and ask next week. Or you can also leave comments below, all right? Especially if you have any ideas of any good RTOs that I should look into, any RTOs you should stay away from, all right? Because I want to start developing that list because I do get that question a lot. So I'm going to start developing that list, put it on my webpage so it gives a reference for someone to look for. Now, I'm not going to put someone's name there if I don't know if they're any good. So I will do my due diligence and I will talk to these RTOs and I will make sure they actually have the right attitude when it comes to training students. Okay, all right, so there's that. If you have any ideas for any videos you'd like to see, once again, leave it in the comments below. If you go through any of my videos and you find any of them are hard to understand and need explaining more, all right, jump down in the comments, leave a comment. All right. Look, I'm always open to new ideas and I want to try and improve as much as I can. And look, I would also like to say one more time, thanks again for all you guys for following and just keeping us supported. It was great to see it get monetized, even though I never had any intention of doing it. The only intention was to help you guys out. So that sort of makes me feel good that you guys are all sort of supporting us along the way as well. All right, so if you are new, and don't forget to, I hate saying it, but like and subscribe and do all the rest of that stuff as well. All right, so, but thanks for your time, guys, and I will see you in the next video. Okay, cheers.